Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back for another night of Truthseekers, where we explore some of the strangest and most mysterious stories on planet Earth. Lately, I have realized that there are a lot of people that make fantastical, supernatural claims in the New Age and consciousness, spirituality, UFO community. And we have in the past gone after some of those fakers, fraudsters, and fairy tale hucksters. But I began to think that it's not really fair leaving out a big player in the world of fantastical, some would say ridiculous, supernatural claims, and that would be the Catholic Church. We did a show previously on incorruptible bodies, a subject that I find fascinating because according to Catholicism and the Catholic priests who educated me as a child, when a saint dies, their bodies don't rot. That's how we know that they are in heaven with God, that they are indeed a saint. It's one of the testers for becoming canonized, they call it, as a saint. After your death, they dig up your body and check in to see how rotten you are. And if you're not rotten, then you're a saint. Or at least that's one sign pointing to you being a saint. One of the saints and supernatural claims that I am most familiar with, both from my childhood and from recent sort of re-educating myself, is one Padre Pio. If you don't know the story of Padre Pio, it is an amazing story. First of all, he was born, in 1887 in Pietrelcina, a town in the province of Benevento, in the southern Italian region of Campania. His parents were actually peasant farmers. He was baptized in a nearby chapel. His parents also had two other children who died in infancy. When he was baptized, he was given the name Francesco. He stated that by the time he was 5 years old, he had already made the decision to dedicate his entire life to God. He worked on the land with his father until the age of about 10, and he looked after a small flock of sheep that his family owned. So from very meager beginnings comes this man who would become, in time, Padre Pio. Young Francesco, or Padre Pio, was afflicted with a number of illnesses. At 6, he suffered from severe gastrointestinus. At 10, he caught typhoid fever. There's various reports that he was a very frail health, a very sickly little boy. And later, those illnesses would, in fact, when he became a priest, early on in his priesthood, or monk actually, he basically went to a special place that was for priests of frail and failing health. The supernatural claims about Padre Pio start early after he begins his priesthood. He basically fell ill at 17, complaining of loss of appetite, insomnia, exhaustion, fainting spells, and migraines. He vomited frequently, and he can only digest milk and cheese. Religious devotees point to this time that inexplicable phenomena allegedly began to occur. During prayers, for example, Pio appeared to others to be in a stupor, as if he were absent. One of Pio's fellow friars later claimed to have seen him in ecstasy and allegedly levitating above the ground. One of Padre Pio's other tricks, I suppose, or supernatural abilities, was the ability to appear in two places at once. There were various reports of Padre Pio appearing to a sick villager while he was, in fact, saying Mass in the local church. I found that to be sort of interesting. And it's not like there's one report of this. There are varying reports of this, and even reports of him appearing to the Pope in the Vatican when he was, in fact, on the other side of Italy somewhere, doing something else. And I find that incredibly interesting. There's a lot of examples of, I guess, bilocation is the ability, and this is discussed in both Buddhist literature and in Christian faith. I believe in Judaism as well. There is some discussion of some ability to appear in two places at once. Would come in handy if you got a lot of chores to do, I suppose. So, his health kept worsening, and to the point that they decided to send him to a mountain convent and hoped that the change in the air would do him good. It did. It had little impact, and the doctors advised that he had to return home. He was ordained a priest by Archbishop Palio Shinsi of the Catholic Cathedral of Benevento. 4 days later, he offered his first Mass at the Parish Church of Our Lady of the Angels. His health being long precarious, he was permitted to remain with his family until 1916, while still retaining the Capuchin habit. That was his order. Capuchins are monks. I don't want to get too far into reading all of this. I found some excellent videos, which I thought may be a little more informative, that could explain some of this strange and supernatural claims. And of course, one of the biggest claims that I have a huge problem with is the claim that his body is incorruptible. We'll see later why that is a completely and totally false claim made by the Catholic Church. But let me see here. I found some old news reports that were put out by the Vatican. And I mean, back in the day, these news reports were generated. Not sure of the actual, I'm not sure of the date that these were generated, but they look pretty old. But I thought for historical purposes, this is really important to see the historical significance of Padre Pio and just how long the Catholic Church had been sort of pumping and promoting him as this saintly person, even before his death when they declared him a saint. So let's see if we can't share this. Okay, 1 second. So this is from RomeReports.com. I'm going to cite fair use, but I believe that this is put out by the Catholic Church and is not copyrighted. But still, we are citing fair use so that we can use this to educate the public about the mysterious Padre Pio.
It was on a farm in a small town in southern Italy where Padre Pio, one of the most famous, studied, and loved saints of our time, grew up. His name is Francesco, and he was born on May 25, 1887. His parents, who were Christian, were not at all surprised when he decided to become a Capuchin. At 23, he was ordained a priest. He couldn't join the order for 6 years because of his health problems. Once he entered the San Giovanni Rotondo convent, his main ministry was to hear confessions, to which he dedicated 14 hours of his day.
It was there in religious life where he became saintly. He lived the virtues of religious life in a very deep manner.
I just want to mention that there's this claim that he would take confessions for 14 hours a day. I had a problem with that. First of all, he lived in a small farm town, basically, of peasants and farmers. And I'm not sure they were even all Catholic in that town, but 14 hours a day is a lot of confessions. I've been to confession. I mean, unless you're confessing to, 85 murders and you're a serial killer, you're in and out of the confessional in 5 minutes, maybe 10 if you did a lot of bad shit. Or the priest wants to lecture you. Sometimes after a confession, a priest will sort of give you godly advice, I guess, and sometimes they ramble for 10 minutes. But even still 15 minutes, max. I don't know. So I found the claim of spending 14 hours a day taking confessions a little bit of a stretch, especially considering that there is another claim that he would spend 14 hours a day praying. That adds up to 28 hours. So I'm not sure if the Catholic Church can do second grade math. I think they can. You cannot be praying for 14 hours and taking confessions for 14 hours at the same time. But of course, this person can be in two places at once. So maybe one of them did the confessions and the other one went and prayed. That's the only explanation I could think of for this discrepancy in these two claims. But it is what it is, friends.
Show to the world a great saint, a man who decided to devote his life to the service of God and men.
But God asked more of him. In 1918, when he was 31, his hands and his side began to reveal signs of the same wounds Christ suffered on the cross, caused by the nails and spear that penetrated his hands and side.
Lui ha accolto, ha accettato questo.
He accepted to participate in the Passion of Christ, but he didn't need these external signs. He said, "Why do I need this confusion?" Because he knew the expectations that these stigmas would spark around him.
Padre Pio gained quite a following due to the physical.
Yeah, so I just wanted to stop, and because he had this thing called the stigmata, which are the crucifixion wounds of Christ, he became an overnight, right after the stigmata appeared in his life or manifested itself, he became an overnight sensation, a pilgrimage point to Catholics all over the world. And really, the Vatican and the Pope had to certify that, yes, this is a real stigmata. I don't know what the determining factor for that is, but I do know I did a little bit of research and digging and asked a Catholic priest who is a theology professor and Catholic priest. I asked that priest, uh, did Padre Pio or the Vatican ever allow any scientific study of this stigmata? And the answer was no. Uh, he was seen by doctors for his various health uh, ailments, I guess, but they never studied. There was never a formal scientific study done of these claimed or alleged stigmata wounds. What was their source? What was their cause? Maybe. So at the end of the day, again, in the Catholic faith, everything is faith. You can't really question the validity or the genuineness of this man having the wounds of Christ and that God gave him those wounds for whatever reason. You're just supposed to have faith. The Vatican and the Pope certified that it was real. So, as a Catholic believer, you're just supposed to go, I have a little bit of a problem with the fact that there was never any scientific study done to determine if there was maybe some other cause. I mean, he could have had some, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I hate to speculate, but he could have had some strange skin disease, maybe. But it seems strange to me. Like, why would that only affect his hands and his feet and his side, right where the apparent wounds of Christ are supposed to be from the crucifixion? So it's a mystery. Why does he have these stigmata wounds? But the Catholic priest and theology professor that I spoke to said that perhaps God gave him those to draw people to him because he was a genuine Christ-like holy figure and saintly man. And perhaps that priest theorized that God gave him the gift of the stigmata so that he would become a sensation and that people would be drawn to him for his ministry and his message.
Signs on his body, his pastoral care for those who visited San Giovanni Rotondo, and the miracles attributed to him. He received hundreds of letters from people asking for his help. There were so many that the brothers of his order had to help him read them all. He didn't rest much, yet he was still happy. To avoid possible confusion, the Vatican asked him to live a non-public life, and he obeyed.
Yeah, this is there was a point at which the Vatican made him stop being a public priest, if that makes any sense, that he was not allowed to have a public ministry. But it had to do with a lot of allegations, not to avoid confusion. I don't know. This video is put out by the Pope or the Vatican, and they're saying to avoid confusion, he was asked not to lead a public life, and he did so for 2 years. No, there was an incredible amount of allegations against him that forced the Catholic Church to sort of punish him and say, you can't be a public priest anymore. And some of those allegations were financial in nature, which is strange to me. Basically, many of the other local priests, monks, whatever, were reporting him to the Vatican, saying that he was a wicked and an evil man. It's a crazy story. I guess there's two sides to every story. Is the guy a saint, or is he a despicable, wicked man, according to the other priests in the area who repeatedly, many of them, reported him to the Vatican for one reason or another? Now, I will say that the priests that I spoke to say that some people believe that that was simply jealousy, because priests are human like everybody else, and these local priests, local to him, did not like the incredible amount of attention that he would get. All the pilgrims coming in constantly every day to hear him say Mass, or to have their confession taken by him, or to ask for his prayers. It was like an assembly line. Every day, new people would be arriving at the church that he lived to see him, to experience his, I suppose, miraculous miracles, ministry.
11 years later, Pope Pius XII allowed him to continue his public ministry, and he received Catholics and non-Catholics alike.
Qualcuno racconta che
They say a person came to Padre Pio to ask for his help in building a hospital. He was a doctor or engineer. He said, I don't believe in God. And Padre Pio responded, don't worry. God believes in you.
Today, his witness is still remembered and celebrated. His example and words continue to leave those devoted to him in awe. Apart from the extraordinary events surrounding Padre Pio's life, it was his simplicity and care for others that still inspires people today.
Okay, and so there are various miracles, most of them about healing, and this Padre Pio healing even terminally ill people, which is interesting to me. But again, the Catholic Church is big on huge claims and very light on any kind of scientific evidence. In other words, they're claiming that this man would lay his stigmata, having hands on people that were terminally ill, and they would be miraculously cured. But we don't get to see like lab reports that they were terminally ill before he did this, and then lab reports after showing that they're no longer terminally ill. So to me, this is a claim, and it's an unproven claim. And listen, I just want to be sure that I mention that I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea that I'm bashing a saint here. By all reports, this man was a very pious, humble, helpful, warm human being. I guess I just have a problem with the Catholic Church making all of these claims. And yes, there is money to be made on these claims, and we'll unpack a little more of that later. Money in the form of pilgrims and pilgrimages and people who pay good money to go visit now the on display body of Padre Pio. Now I found another more modern video that we're gonna check into that video as well, which is a much more modern look, much more modern made video that explains why Padre Pio, or I guess it speculates about why Padre Pio got the stigmata, and tells a little bit of the story, more of this saint's story. I'm going to cite fair use, but again, I think this is a Catholic nonprofit organization that would not mind us using their video for educational purposes, but I will still cite fair use and say this is a transformative work. We are using this clip from this video to educate the public about the mysteries surrounding Padre Pio. So fair use. Okay, I have this queued up. Oh, wrong one. 1 second. Let me try that again, friends. Live show. It's going to happen. That's the next one. Okay, here we go. This is from EWTN Vaticano, which I think is the Vatican television channel. But again, we're going to cite fair use. This is transformative work. We're using this clip to educate the public. And there's the right one. I'm going to get this queued up a little bit. There we go.
The name of the city is forever linked with one of the most popular contemporary saints, Saint Padre Pio. Today, San Giovanni Rotondo hosts the shrine dedicated to the image of Our Lady of Graces.
And this is the church that Padre Pio served in for much of his life.
When the young novice Francesco Forgione, the baptismal name of Padre Pio, arrived here on July the 28th, 1916, there was only a convent in the middle of a wood in the wilderness.
We're right by the convent where he spent his years, and a convent was established here in the year 1538, and then in the year 1646 was dedicated to Our Lady of Graces.
The church, Santa Maria della Grazia, built on the site of the old church, was constructed in 1956. Today, it is the central focus of the sanctuary, and the repaired and preserved body of Padre Pio is on display in the crypt.
Yeah, so much like the St. John Newman body that I described seeing as a child in Philadelphia, in Center City, Philadelphia, they have his body, which is said to not be, it's said to be incorruptible. And I have a huge problem with this term incorruptible, because this is the general meaning that Catholics have come to know is that the body does not rot. But it really depends on who you ask for the definition. What is the definition of that? There is a great divide. Some say it just means that the body rots slower. Some say it just means that the body is flexible. Flexible and not rotting are, to me, it's two different things. But like St. John Newman, which is a source of income, they put Padre Pio's body on display in the church that he served at, in this chapel. And it is a pilgrimage point, and thousands and thousands of people come from all over the world to go to that go to that chapel, pray, and view the incorruptible, allegedly incorruptible body of Padre Pio. Now, I have to say, this one looks so much better than the really fake looking wax mask of St. John Newman that is covering St. John Newman's skull, basically, in Center City, Philadelphia. Boy, this one looks realistic. It looks like a sleeping man. Doesn't look like a man who has been dead for many, many years, does it? Better job on this one. I'll give the Catholic Church that. Much better job on this one, and we'll find out why as we continue to unpack this. I don't want to spill the beans just yet about why this one looks so much better, but it certainly looks better.
St. Padre Pio.
Ooh. Here we may have some clue about the actual condition of the body, because although some steps were taken to the face, right? here we could see the hands and their actual state of what looks to me like probably normal human decomposition for the age of the body and how long it has been dead. Again, we'll unpack more of this later.
Pio suffered intensely through the transverberation, that lance that pierced his side on the 5th of August 1918, then in the stigmata a month later.
Yes, so apparently a lance, he got the side wound first, and then sometime later the wounds appeared on his hands and his feet, which are all the crucifixion wounds of Christ.
The stigmata, when a person receives them from the Lord, they are a participation in his passion, his death. And so a person is stamped with the same wounds that Jesus Christ had.
Entering the convent, we met the friar guardian, Carlo Maria Laborde. Father Carlo leads us through the long corridor to reveal the spiritual heart of the friars.
At the moment, we're in a cell that used to be Padre Pio's room. He started living here 102 years ago, when he arrived in 1916. He came here for health reasons, looking for a more suitable environment for his state of health, and consequently, this small room was assigned to it. This room, Padre Pio practically always kept. It's very important because of some of the events that happened here during those years.
Yeah, and we see a very humble, simple room with like a bed and a desk and not much more. And this is where he was said to pray for 14 hours a day. Yeah, I've just read a lot of different stories of him being so intent in prayer that his brothers, his monk brothers, would try to call him to meals and he would not respond. He was literally entranced in prayer for hours and hours a day. Take from that what you will, but it's an interesting side note to the story of Padre Pio that he would put himself into into an actual trance and be unresponsive for hours and hours at a time through prayer. And eventually the brothers would be able to, get him to respond to them. They knew after a while to just leave him alone for a few hours and go check on him again. Some hours later, where, depending on the time, I guess, how long he was in these trances, he would become more responsive.
Padre Pio was here on August the 5th, 1918, a month before the stigmata appeared. He was confessing a group of young seminarians in this room, as he was their spiritual director. At a certain point, he tells in a letter addressed to his spiritual director, a mysterious character appeared who threw a kind of iron instrument that pierced his heart, and that character was Christ. Temporarily, the heart of Padre Pio is located here. It was placed in this reliquary that Pope Benedict blessed when he visited this sanctuary on June the 21st, 2009, on the occasion of the exhumation. So the heart was placed in this reliquary.
Yeah, so they took the heart out of the body and placed it in this sort of fancy box. I forget, he said reliquary. I think that's the Catholic word for it. And a reliquary is where a relic of a saint will be placed. And there's many of these all over the world. Some of them hold bones of the apostles or claimed bones of the apostles or saints. There is a lot of weird reliquaries. Some of them will have the hand of a saint in it, a heart, some other organ. It's a strange practice, which I don't really feel like the Catholic priests ever fully explained to me why that is. I guess people just want a piece of that saintly person.
After his death, there were several shirts found with bloodstains. Evidently, Padre Pio had a wound. It's not known if it was permanent. Perhaps he suffered from these wounds while celebrating Mass. He also suffered the flagellation and the crown of thorns. Or maybe they appeared on Fridays or during Lent on some particular day.
For those unaware, the flagellation is Christ getting whipped and beaten in the back. And for people that have the stigmata, if they also experience the flagellation wounds, they will get lashes and welts and things on their back that bleed. And front, really, it depends. And these shirts were found with bloodstains all over them, which to me is just an interesting part of the story and maybe proof that he had some sort of bleeding wounds.
But certainly this relic proves what John Paul II later said, that Padre Pio had a very painful wound there, that he said it was even the most painful.
And a second note, the crown of thorns, sometimes people who experience the stigmata, if they're also gifted with the crown of thorns, they will get, like puncture wounds around their head, like Christ did, I suppose, from a crown of thorns, which will then bleed. Again, a kind of a crazy supernatural claim.
Saint Padre Pio suffered physically, but perhaps his moral sufferings were even greater, because during his life there were all sorts of accusations and allegations against him. Stefano Campanella, author of many books about the saint, gives us more details on this difficult period in Padre Pio's life.
We are inside the inner chapel of the convent, also known as the Sacculum, where Padre Pio celebrated Mass in solitude from June 1931 until June 1933, when the Holy Office banned him from all priestly activities, with the exception of celebrating the Holy Mass in private at the presence of maximum of one other person.
And also, for those that don't know, a Catholic priest must say the Mass once a week, at least once a week. So even if they take away a priest's right to say the Mass in public, generally as a form of discipline for some reason, I don't know what that's about, but they will still be allowed to say the Mass in private or with a number of other people, different restrictions depending on the, I guess, sin that they're being punished for against the Catholic Church.
Stefano says that the worst accusations came from the local clergy. Out of jealousy, they reported to the Vatican that Padre Pio was a greedy and wicked monk, and that his influence was harmful to the people. As a consequence, the Vatican imposed severe restrictions and forbade Padre Pio from public ministry.
And again, the allegations against him, what they actually were, it depends on who you ask. It really depends on who you ask. I got several different answers from several different people affiliated with the Catholic Church. A media spokesperson gave me one explanation, which seemed sort of like just brushing off that the allegations, they were just allegations, they were never proven, and there was jealousy within the clergy local to him. And other people that you ask that sort of aren't on the side, you might say, of the Catholic Church have a darker view of what those allegations were about. Some involved, his influence on the town, his apparent greed, which flies in the face of this priestly, holy, saintly image that he and the Catholic Church sort of pushed. And I found that very interesting.
Replying to this injustice, Padre Pio used to say, "We kiss the hand of our mother. When it is that same hand that disciplines you, do we not kiss that hand?" He chose to be obedient to the Church at any cost. After 2 years of obedience, Padre Pio was allowed to return to his public priestly ministry. Under the tender gaze of Our Lady of Graces, here Padre Pio celebrated daily Mass and heard confessions. This chapel was a well of his spiritual strength and a source of all miracles and graces. Even today, there is a never-ending flow of pilgrims that pray before the Blessed Sacrament and leave prayer petitions at Padre Pio's confessional. At the back of the church on the balcony, there is a big wooden cross. Right here, when in deep prayer, Padre Pio received the stigmata in 1918. This phenomenon continued for over 50 years until the end of his life.
Walking through the sacristy, we met Father Marciano Mora setting up things for Mass. Father Marciano is the last living friar in San Giovanni Rotondo who lived with Padre Pio.
I just wanted to mention that this announcer or this person mentioned that the stigmata would stay with him throughout his entire life, but apparently the day that he died, the stigmata wounds disappeared from his body. That's, again, a claim. I don't know about the accuracy of that claim, but I find it pretty interesting, part of the story, that he would have the stigmata while he was alive, but then as soon as he died, it would disappear. And how do wounds just disappear after someone passes away? Except, I suppose, through some supernatural means. And I think that's what the implication is here.
Qual è stata la mia prima esperienza?
What was my first impression when I met Padre Pio? He reminded me of a grandfather with his grandchildren. Beautiful. He was so affectionate, kind, and had kind words. He made us laugh, he made us joke.
Ci faceva ridere, ci faceva scherzare.
Father Marciano says that during confession, Padre Pio took sins onto his own shoulders. It was a moment of deep union with the sufferings of Christ, through which we are saved.
Io ho visto le stimmate di Padre Pio.
I saw Padre Pio's stigmata, but I saw them because I was serving Mass. Serving Mass was a privilege. I remember that before leaving, Padre Pio used to stand here and get vested before going to the altar. Before going to the altar, he took his gloves off. Therefore, he used to celebrate Mass without his gloves.
Yeah, and it's well known that he wore gloves most of the time. Because of the stigmata, these wounds would bleed a lot and at various times. So generally he would wear gloves. But when he said the Mass, he would take the gloves off so that people could witness the miracle of the stigmata that he was apparently gifted with.
Back in the sacristy, Padre Pio allowed his wounded hands without gloves on to be kissed, a great privilege. One morning after I'd served Mass, I went back to the sacristy, and before he put his gloves back on, he offered his hand for me to kiss it. I took it very delicately, and I brought it to my lips. What did I see? I put it back very slowly to take its image in. There was a large scab of blood on it, and where the scab was broken, fresh blood was visible.
Si vedeva il sangue vivo.
The Lord chose to give Padre Pio the stigmata for the sake of the body, the church. They were a sign to others of his credibility as a confessor, his credibility as a man who could read souls. So people were drawn to Padre Pio because of the stigmata. God used that. But then when they were in his presence, he gave them a word for their lives, certainly to lead them perhaps from sinful ways, lead them from very difficult situations, sufferings, in order that they could encounter the resurrection. Interesting, that for Padre Pio, he bore those stigmata for over 50 years, but then immediately after his death, the stigmata disappeared. So they were a ministry given to him for this life to bring other souls to Christ. They were not for themselves, they were not for sensationalism, but they were truly to bring souls to Jesus.
Yeah, so interesting. Again, the priest that I talked to about this, who is a theologian, told me that the general belief was that he was given this gift of the stigmata to draw people to him and by extension to the Catholic faith, the Catholic Church, and to Christ. I just have one last quick thing to share in our presentation this evening, which is I wanted to make sure that everybody got a good view of the allegedly incorruptible body of Padre Pio. So I have found a pilgrim that made a video, which is very good because it shows pretty close images of Padre Pio's body, which is preserved at San Giovanni Rotunda in Italy. Let's And again, we're going to cite fair use. We're using this video this is a transformative work, and we're using this video to educate the public about the mysterious Padre Pio. This video is about his incorruptible body. I wanted to share with my audience some very good views of that allegedly incorruptible body. So, fair use. Here we are. It's a little creepy to just have a human body laying out like that, but I mean, it is what it is. This is what Catholics do. We're going to pause it right here. I mentioned that this one looks much, much better than the wax face of St. John Newman that I saw in Center City, Philadelphia, that looked completely fake. And I knew that that wasn't a body. I knew it was fake right away. And I asked myself as a child, if I had seen this one, would I think that incorruptibility was real? Would I think this was a real body? And the answer, I think, is yeah. This one looks like a real human body. It looks like a real human face. And look at that, how fresh that, it looks like this person is sleeping and still alive. It doesn't look like a dead, decaying, rotting body that has been dead for decades. Even though it is. And so I wanted to know, did the Catholic Church give this any help, or was this supposed to be or claimed to be the actual face of Padre Pio's now allegedly incorruptible body? And again, asked the Catholic priest that is a theologian, and he teaches theology and Catholic religion classes, told me a disappointing truth. This, friends, is not the face of Padre Pio. This is a silicone mask that was created by artists from the Vatican and placed over the decaying face of Padre Pio. It's a big disappointment. It's a big letdown. And I don't understand how the Catholic Church can sort of push this narrative that this saint is incorruptible and we're going to put him in a box and you can pay a few bucks and have a pilgrimage and come here and view the incorruptible body of Padre Pio, but it's not incorruptible. In fact, the fingers that we saw earlier give some indication. I specifically asked this theology professor about that, and he said, no help was given to the fingers. He thinks that they were a little sensitive about the hands. They didn't want to do anything with the hands because these were the hands that were gifted with the stigmata. So they didn't do anything to the hands. And we saw the condition of the hands. They were black and rotting. The fingers are black and rotting as any normal human would rot for that time being dead. So this is a clever illusion. And I believe that this clever illusion is cast to make money. It's a huge money source for the local church, especially. But I'm sure they got to kick up, to the Vatican some of that money that people are leaving in those collection plates. All those pilgrims coming there. I've seen multiple sort of explanations of just how many people are going and trying to see the body of Padre Pio. They're packed every day. They're packed with new pilgrims every day. This little obscure church in the middle of nowhere in Italy is packed with pilgrims. And we see this sort of, we've got an incorruptible body in our chapel. Really all over the world, there's many different examples of this practice, which to me is a pretty morbid and strange practice. We're going to put the pattern follows just like St. John Newman that I personally witnessed. And this Padre Pio, what they do is they take a normal human decaying body and then they put a mask over it or even a fake head. In one case, I found an entire fake body was created and put in the glass. And then beneath the fake body was basically a skeleton of the actual rotted corpse of the saint that the fake was intended to portray. I don't know what to say about this except, it's just not real. It's just not real. And we'll watch a little bit more of this. And there we can see a not so good as we saw before view of the rotting hands of Padre Pio. These didn't get help, so those appear to be normal decomposing human hands. With the decomposition level that I'm not a pathologist or a coroner, but it looks like, yeah, that's a normal rotting human hand. Definitely a little morbid. They did a good job on the mask. These are pieces from the museum. Yeah, I guess that's enough of that. So, I guess what I'm left with really is more questions than answers. Why can we not get to the truth of what the allegations against him that caused the Catholic Church to shut him down for many years? Why can we not get some specific details of what those allegations were? And why do I get different answers to my questions depending on who I ask? I've not gotten a straight answer about what those allegations were all about. But it's the Catholic Church doesn't just take an allegation against a priest and punish him. There's some sort of process there. So there had to be some validity to the complaints against him by the local clergy members. But again, we also have reports that those people were just jealous. So I find this whole Catholic Church, it's basically a Catholic Church grift. Like, we're going to put a normal decaying body in a glass box, and then we're going to help it along with either in St. John Newman's case, a wax mask. In Padre Pio's case, a silicone mask. It's like they upped their game, right? They got a silicone mask that's really realistic. They probably made a life cast of his face, and or just an artist went in and made a likeness of him in latex and rubber, and punched all the hair in. It's a really good job. It looks totally realistic, but it's fake as shit. But you too can have a pilgrimage to come and see our incorruptible saint. Incorruptibility to me is a lie. This is the second show where we've touched on this concept, this Catholic concept of incorruptibility. Please, if anyone has a genuine example of an incorruptible body that is genuinely not rotting, is genuinely not decaying, showing normal signs of human decay, please send it to me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. I asked around to several different Catholic priests and Catholic priest educators, and they could not give me, they couldn't be sure. They were like wishy-washy, like, well, I hear that some of the cases are really genuine and they don't get help, like a silicone mask or a wax mask. And I said, great, well, which one are those? I'll go look into those. Oh, I don't really know. I just know some of them are real. Okay, it's like a bait and switch, though, for the Catholic Church to tell people this is an incorruptible body of a saint and then slap a silicone mask on it. To me, that seems really like an immoral and unethical thing to do, especially when you're taking money from people. But it's the Catholic Church. It's all about the Benjamins. I like to say, Father, grab a dollar. They're going to grab a dollar any way they can, friends. And if that means faking a body of a saint that's not rotten, and here you can look at this body of this saint that's not rotten or decayed, but it is, yeah, make sure you put your church envelopes in, throw some money in our collection plate. I don't know. As far as the various claims of his miracles, again, these are claims. And I started our broadcast talking about how I and many other people sort of go after New Age fakes, right? These fake psychics, these fake whistleblowers, fake abduction victims, fake UFO contactees. We go after them because they're taking money from stupid people for ridiculous claims they can't prove. But religion is no different, is no better. They do the same thing. Maybe they just, I don't know, get a pass because they're not like a UFO cult. They're a major religion, whatever that means. Not sure what to think about Padre Pio. Do I think that he was a humble, pious man who prayed a lot? Sure. Do I know that he's a saint in heaven right now? I don't know. I don't think that any man can know. That's another problem I have with Catholicism. The general accepted teaching on saints and why you declare them a saint is because you are sure that they are in heaven with God. I don't know that any man can be sure of another man's path to God or heaven, right? For all we know, some of the saints had secrets that they never shared. Maybe they committed a mortal sin. Maybe they killed somebody. Maybe they raped somebody and covered it up. Certainly somebody that killed or raped somebody and covered it up wouldn't get into heaven, right? But the Catholic Church feels confident that they can declare, yes, this person is in heaven. I think it's nonsense, and part of it's just some of the things that caused me to lose faith in the Catholic Church as a youngster. Now we'll take some, we're going to take some, I'm going to turn my total attention to you guys in the live chat. We're going to take comments and questions for a little while. Sixth designs. It's all about the money, or maybe just lust for the flesh, or maybe some heinous crime they do with kids. Sorry, you will never convince me church is the way to go. Yeah, they've got a lot of baggage. They got a lot of baggage. William Pixley says, they are supposedly free of sin, perfect of spirit, and ascended. Yeah, maybe they paid David Wilcock the $333 before they died, William Pixley. They bought their ticket to ascension, maybe. Professor Fez says, like any organization, it's the management that sucks. I agree. The management sucks there. And, you know, the systematic cover-up of the pedophilia is really it's unexcusable, and it's unforgivable what they did. But again, you got to try to be a Christian and forgive those that wrong you or other people. And I try, but when it comes to children and putting so many children in danger and at risk, I just can't let it go. I can't forgive that. I just can't do it. Sixth Design says baggage, a fitting analogy, and a lot of it. Yeah, and I wanted to ask, what do you guys think of these shows where we sort of explore some Catholic mysteries? Because I've got 100 more of them. I made a list, not 100, but I got a bunch more of them. I made a list of my favorites from my childhood. There's Saint Bernadette. There is the the appearance of the Blessed Mary at Fatima. There's an incredible amount of material on Saint Joan of Arc. There's a lot of Catholic mysteries, and I think that in the paranormal world, some of the Christian and Catholic mysteries just get ignored as not relevant, right, to the discussion, which doesn't make sense to me. If we're all interested in paranormal events and paranormal topics, these are some pretty paranormal events and topics, right? And I'm not sure if we'll continue. Carol Utley asks, which stigmata case do you believe? I'm not sure I believe any of them. I mean, I don't know how to explain wounds just appearing or disappearing off of a human body. I don't want to speculate about Padre Pio, but I will say this. Could somebody just cut themselves a lot, frequently, to create those kind of wounds on their body? Could those wounds have been self-inflicted to gain attention, notoriety, or profit from them somehow? Sure, I suppose. They've never submitted any stigmata person to scientific study. So, I think that a qualified medical professional would be able to look at those wounds and tell with some degree of certainty if they were self-inflicted or if there's some other causal factor that caused them. The stigmata is just a mystery to me, Carol Utley. I'd love to believe that Christ gifts people with that, but what kind of gift is that, right? Maybe he wants people to suffer like he did so that they would know his suffering on the cross. It's not, it's generally anybody that has the stigmata, it's supposed to be incredibly painful. These wounds will open, they'll bleed, they'll be painful. It's a strange, strange thing. William Pixley, nor should anyone. Those that prey on kids should be locked away forever. Yeah, I'm for the death penalty, especially if somebody's like got multiple victims. I'm for the death penalty for those people. They don't stop. They can go to jail. There's a lot of supportive evidence that some pedophiles can go to jail for 10 years, and as soon as they get out, they're trying to reoffend again. They do not. They're very difficult to rehabilitate. Stephen Ronan, I heard the Catholic Mass is half pagan. You may be right. I think that the practice of the wine and the bread is an Egyptian. Actually, there's an Egyptian rite where you will drink wine and take bread, which a lot of people think that the Catholic Mass, where you drink the wine, which is supposed to be the blood of Christ, and eat the bread, which is supposed to be the body of Christ, was actually based on this Egyptian pre-existing Egyptian ritual. I hear there's also a pagan ritual like this, or a ritual like this in witchcraft, or, you know, various sort of pre-Christian religions had a rite where you would drink wine and take a piece of bread in some symbolic, I don't know what that, you know, each religion or each ritual gives a different explanation about what that's supposed to signify. To Catholics, you're taking into yourself the body and blood of Christ, and you do that every week. And, you know, it's interesting, you're not supposed to go and take the communion if you have any sins. So, you know, confession on Saturday, mass on Sunday, basically is how it goes. You got to go to confession first before you can get the communion. You have to be free of sin. You're supposed to be free of sin when you take the communion, and it's considered I guess it's considered a sin to take the body of and blood of Christ into yourself if you have sin in you at the time that you do it. Does that make sense? I hope I'm explaining this right. I haven't thought about Catholic masses and rituals for some time. Yeah, Carol Utley. I like the movie Stigmata. I love that movie. I highly recommend it. It's a great movie. It's a great movie, and it's a fictionalized version of someone that has the stigmata, but it's still a great movie. And in this case, it's a woman that gets it. Dominic says, I prefer David Wilcock stories to Catholic stories. Well, yeah, I get that. I get that. You know, my biggest thing though is that I know there are literally channels, YouTube channels, dedicated solely to just ripping apart David Wilcock or Corey Good or whoever. And I'd like to have a broader brush. I'd like to have a bigger net, you know, and do stories about all different paranormal and mysterious topics, and not just those guys. But I get it. And, you know, I see the numbers. I know when I do one of those shows, it's like fan service and everybody goes, wow, let's watch this one. You know, the numbers spike up. I also notice that when I'm angry, you know, if I'm spitting venom for a while in a show, that one gets better numbers. So apparently people like me to be angry and losing my shit. Good to know. Six is design. If there is truly a spirit realm, it's very well hidden, so well we may never know. You're probably right, Six is design. Ellen Fox. Welcome, Ellen Fox. Shout out to Ellen Fox. Young man from Utah came to a small farming community of Freedom, Wisconsin, where I grew up, and he had bleeding palms. I didn't get to see it, though. He passed away in his 30s. Well, that's interesting. Catholic churches are specifically on many pagan sites. They just built over established pagan altars. And that is very common practice. We see Muslims will build a mosque over existing church or existing synagogues all the time. The new religion builds right on top of the old religion. That is a historical fact, and it happens many, many times. Carol Utley says she has seen it 10 or more times. Yes, we're talking about the movie Stigmata. I recommend it. I like that movie. In fact, I'm going to see if I can get that or watch it again. I haven't seen it in some time. Vanessa Thor says she loves that movie. So there you go. You got 3 recommendations. That's a good movie. Okay. Vanessa Thor says none of Wilcock's stories are his own stories. He picks the best from all religions and twists them. It's a good con. Planet Lupus says, but this is interesting too. And let's see, Professor Fez, one of his nurses allegedly had a receipt for carbolic acid. What is the significance, Professor Fez, of carbolic acid? Do you think he was creating the stigmata with some sort of acid on his, you know, was it self-inflicted? Was he using some kind of acid? Was that the implications that he somehow created these stigmata wounds on his own? Carol Utley, the Vatican sits on pagan grounds. You are absolutely right about that. Stephen Ronan, Wilcock bores me. Yeah, I don't know. I can't sit through him anymore. It's just ridiculous to listen to him lie through his fake fucking teeth. There, I said it. People love it when I say it. David Wilcock, all David Wilcock does in every video, in every appearance, in every documentary, it's mockumentary, really. They're a joke. He just lies through his fake fucking teeth. And I don't want to sit through that much any more than I have to report on the ridiculousness of him. Sixth design, Wilcock is about as original as the Mona Lisa drawn with crayons. Yes, Dominic, David Wilcock was just an example. Okay, so yeah, we'll see. We're going to be doing future shows about David Wilcock. There are intact pagan spaces under the Vatican. That would not surprise me. Would not surprise me at all. 1 second, friends. I have to check into my PayPal here and take care of some business because I think that we got a donation between last night's show and this night's show. For those that would like to support me, you can do so by clicking the About on our channel here. There is a donate button. You can donate by PayPal or donate by Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We have a whole lot of benefits. I just gave out a free demo of MindHack, the MindHack system, and we did an audio journal for Patreon supporters only this month. You get sort of a backstage pass if you're a Patreon supporter. As far as the PayPal donations, we have, she's not here tonight. She's busy with family, but Kel Truth sent a kind and generous $10 donation. And she says, "Hey, Stephen, appreciate all your hard work to help bring us the truth. Much appreciated. Thanks, Kel." Well, thank you, Kel Truth, for your kind and generous donation. It means a lot to me that people are supporting the show and helping to keep us going forward, doing more shows. My sincere gratitude to Kel Truth. And I will shout it out again when she's here because she kind of missed her shout out and missed me thanking her. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And I will be sending you off your free gifts. You're getting some mood rings and probably a rosary, right? As a gift from me for your kind and generous donations. Six is design, helping out, sharing the links in the About tab. Yes, you too can send me money. Six Design asks, have you done Knights Templar stuff before? No, but I find the subject incredible. We haven't done a show on the Knights Templar. We haven't done a show on any of that, and I find it extremely fascinating topic. It's just amazing to me, and the way that they hide things in plain sight in geometry and sacred geometry and the shrines that they've built and the hiding places. And it's fascinating that they may have the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant hidden somewhere. I love the Knights Templar stuff, and I want to, we'll do a show on the Knights Templar. Maybe we'll get into a deep dive on some of those subjects because it's really interesting stuff. Oh, Professor Fez. Great contribution, Professor Fez. The allegation was that he was faking the wounds with acid. It could have been used to sterilize equipment, though. Yeah, I've heard, I try to ask the priest that I talked to about this case, but he didn't want to go there. He said, no, they came from God. I said, well, couldn't they have been self-inflicted? And he said, I can't speculate. They came from God. We know they came from God because Pope John Paul II said that they came from God. Okay. I think a topic that these guys reuse periodically is the mass arrest topic. David Wilcock used it a few years back and now making its way back. Dominic, I'm not sure that I've seen you here before. And if you are new, welcome to our little spot on the internet. We are a cool group trying to get to the truth behind some of these mysterious subjects. Here's what I can tell you about David Wilcock and his claims that mass arrests are coming any minute now. He's been making those claims. He first made those claims in 1998. That's right. Since 1998, and you're right, every few years he pulls that back out. You know, I swear that David Wilcock has flashcards, right? And the flashcards just say stuff like Men in Black, Cabal, mass arrests, secret tribunals, and he just shuffles that deck of shit cards, right? And then it makes it easier for him to lie through his fake fucking teeth if he can just put some cards down on the table. Those are his talking points. Okay, I'll talk about mass arrests for a while, then I'll talk about the Cabal, I'll talk about elite pedophile rings and the Illuminati. He just makes shit up. He just makes shit up. He's sitting in $1 million house making up fake stories and raking in the cash. God bless him. William Pixley says it's possible the Knights Templar found the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, and I also wanted to do a story on the Ark of the Covenant ending up in Africa. Right? There is a tribe of Africans that claim that the Ark of the Covenant ended up there, and that they have been guarding it for centuries. But only the high priest from that order is allowed to go in and see this. See the Ark of the Covenant. No one else outside of that specific person in the I guess clergy there has ever actually seen it. So, but it's a great story. I don't know if it's there, but they told some great stories about if you go in there and you're not the high priest that's supposed to take care of it. If you go in there and you look at it, you die, or you fall violently ill, and that's just a crazy part of the story. Wilcock is overdue for another death threat. Any day now, we will get another public meltdown. Yeah, I think that I think that he is fucked. I think he's fucked because there is ample and supportive proof that he has participated now in 2 different fundraising, I'm going to call them scams. They were scams, made up shit, or told completely and totally false narrative, and then begged for donations. And then we find out that everything that he was saying when he was begging for those donations is a complete and total fabrication and falsehood. And this happened both in the case of Pete Peterson. Everything in the GoFundMe body of text we've proven line by line was a complete total fabrication. None of that happened. And then we move on to the Emery Smith PayPal con, which was the cabal's trying to kill him. The cabal stole his dog. The cabal killed his dog. Yeah, it was all fake. None of that shit happened. So there's twice now, at least twice, that David Wilcock has been involved in these fundraising scams. I don't know how a spiritual guru is involved in so many fake fundraising scams, but it's David Wilcock. And interestingly, both of those scams were few months apart, right? I think, looking at the timeline, I could be wrong. I got to look at it again, but I remember thinking that maybe when he did the GoFundMe for Pete Peterson and saw all that money coming in, then he decided to do another one with Emery Smith. This is opinion and speculation, but look at the dates of the Pete Peterson GoFundMe scam and look at the blog post date where he's the first day where he's begging for money for the Emery Smith Survival Fund, right? The only thing that guy needs to survive is his alcoholism. And again, here is another part to the story. I want to make sure that people understand that I have tremendous empathy for anybody with alcohol issues. My mother was an alcoholic. So I have tremendous empathy for people with that problem. I took care of my mother for more than 20 years after the death of my father. And after the death of my father, she was inconsolable. All she did was drink. And, it's hell. It's hell living with that sort of addiction. It's hell trying to take care of someone with that sort of addiction. So I have empathy as well for his girlfriend who he might have been abusing or allegedly was abusing. I don't know. My wish for him is that he finds a meeting, right? That he tries AA or some other inpatient. Maybe he needs to go to a detox, a rehab, and get clean. And I find it deplorable that people at Gaia had to know. You don't employ somebody that's that much of an alcoholic and not know that they have alcohol issues. So we have Gaia, conference organizers, radio show hosts, podcast hosts, whatever, video show hosts, all using this poor person that has severe alcohol issues, knowing that he has severe alcohol issues. Maybe they all didn't know, but I'm sure some of them did. And instead of getting him aside and trying to get him help, they just sought to profit from him and his crazy fake stories. And by the way, there's 2 sides to every story. I today started watching some videos which featured both Emery Smith and his girlfriend Olivia, whose father is now, sort of whistleblowing on Emery Smith and telling the truth behind allegedly telling the truth. I believe he's telling the truth about some of these events, but I think she's just as guilty. There's that story is not over yet, and we have to do a part two. Because in fairness, she's sitting right next to him, helping him sell the con at all these conferences. Suddenly they have a falling out, and now he's a fraud. Was she a fraud for participating with him? Where was this father when they were out grifting if he knew that that was all fake? Why didn't he come out and inform the public that Emery Smith was defrauding the public for fake stories before they break up and suddenly Emery Smith is a bad guy now. But the whole time that they were together, the guy's daughter was helping Emery run his businesses and sell the con stories that he was telling at conferences and on Gaia TV. There's more to the story, and we're going to keep looking into it. It also appears to me that this gentleman, his once father-in-law, I'm going to call him that for lack of a better term, is sort of retreading a lot of things that people have already done. Now he's like, oh, I'm going to show David Wilcock's 990. Okay, we did that a year ago or something, or maybe not that long ago, but still, he's sort of retreading things that people have already done and sort of claiming credit, like he's going to bring down all these frauds and fakers. And part of me is like, where were you 3 years ago? There's people that have been doing this even longer than me out here exposing the frauds and the cons, but suddenly you're going to be the hero now. Okay. But we can agree to disagree. He seems like his heart's in the right place. I can tell that he's, and people are saying they're running sort of a campaign trying to spread this information and take Emery down. And this is the internet, folks. It's troll wars sometimes, this guy wants to spread his information and he wants people to know that Emery's a con artist. It's a little suspect to me that he didn't want people to know that Emery Smith was a con artist when his daughter and Emery Smith were working the con together. But okay, so like I said, there's two sides to that story, and we're going to dig into it a little further. Okay, friends. Sorry, I'm getting caught up in I really think Emery has a one-time huge opportunity to clean out all the cons and change the game forever if he is brave. That's never going to happen. He's going to have to admit that all of the stuff that he talked about for the last few years was all fake. Do I see him doing that? No. He likes the spotlight. And here's the sense that I get from Emery Smith. I get that it's just my sort of read on him is that he was a completely unremarkable person, right? He was sort of the invisible nerd in the room that nobody paid attention to. And suddenly he's telling these fake stories and he's the center of attention. He's celebrated. He's worshipped. And I think he liked that. And so I don't think that he's going to change his tune. I don't think there'll be any. I'm hopeful still. I believe that there's a road to redemption for every man. But do I think that Emery Smith is going to take it? No, I really don't think so. I think that he's gotten used to free money for telling fake stories. And the stream that I listened to today, here's what I'll say about the stream that I listened to 2 hours of Emery Smith and his then girlfriend, Olivia, who was sort of interviewing him and basically became like the handler, like the job that David Wilcock would do, like ask these questions and guide the conversation. Here's what we're going to talk about. She and him, I can't. There's half alien robot dogs with electronics in them that we take through portals and into, I don't even know where I was going. It could have been the inner Earth. It could have been other planets. Okay. And then the inner Earth stuff was, just like Corey Good's bullshit Anshar stories. But he also made a claim that I found very interesting, in that he said when he would do OBGYN surgeries when he was in the military, Emery Smith, you weren't a surgeon. You were like a surgical technician. That's basically the guy that stands next to the real surgeon and hands him like the scalpel and sets up the patient, maybe, cleans the area they're going to cut into before the surgeon gets there. That's what a surgical tech does. A surgical tech does not perform OBGYN surgeries, as he claimed in this video I watched. The amount of bullshittery coming out of that guy's mouth, I listened to a while ago David Wilcock interviewing him. And as soon as I heard that he had claimed that he, autopsied all these alien bodies, I just laughed. I turned off, and I didn't follow what he was talking about for years until recently now. But now, having sampled it, I'm glad that I missed out on that whole train of bullshittery, because there's no value in anything that Emery Smith talks about. There's no value in any of it. There's no proof. Oh, and by the way, he's also in that 2-hour video claiming to have invented a free energy device, right? Where's it at, Emery Smith? Claiming to also have invented these light therapy devices that can cure cancer. He said that these devices, we've proven they can cure cancer. All right, so Emery Smith, you cured cancer. Emery Smith, you cured cancer? Is this kind of like you were an astronaut too, right? You were an astronaut and you cured cancer. So, so many great stories, so many drugs. Yeah, and listen, this father-in-law reported that he was selling psilocybin, and he had previously been arrested, or somebody was arrested. I'm not sure if it was him. I think it was him, arrested in his Range Rover with mushrooms in the vehicle. So psychedelic drugs could be the source of a lot of these fantastical stories, of course. I hear that there is a big, that's very common with these people, that everybody's doing mushrooms and psilocybin and smoking DMT. So I'm going to, listen, if I smoke some DMT, I'm going to see an alien too. But I'm not going to try to make a career out of a drug-induced, hallucinogenic fantasy. And these people do. It's crazy. Emery has been living a destructive life for years, whether it's lying, being a con, or a drunk. He is a grown-ass man. Time to grow up. Yeah, I think the story about the sentient crystalline UFO he autopsied live, gold. Oh, I got to hear that. You got to send me a link. And here's another one. These guys all use other people's stuff. In this 2-hour stream, Emery Smith mentioned a Jello mold UFO, but it was made out of sort of gelatinous material, and so was the alien inside it, and they had the same DNA. But Jello mold flying saucer, that came directly from Bob Lazar's story. Bob Lazar described some of the UFOs in the hangar. He called one the Jello mold because it looked like an upside down Jello mold. And here we have the exact same term that I've never heard another human being on Earth use the term Jello mold UFO or Jello mold flying saucer other than Bob Lazar, and suddenly here's Emery Smith using the nearly exact term. These guys just rip each other off. They mine each other for bullshit, and they regurgitate bullshit. Dominic, if these cons can get sued or go to jail for taking money in exchange for their bullshit, wouldn't traditional psychics, tarot, etc., all be in jail? Yeah, and a lot of the traditional psychics and tarot readers put the disclaimer for entertainment purposes only. The problem is that these clowns don't do that yet, but I have a feeling that they're going to be doing exactly that soon. The heat is on them legally, they know, but I don't think that you can lie in a GoFundMe scam and say, this is for entertainment purposes only, still send me your money for this fake story, or in a PayPal donation scam. I don't think that you can take people's money and just say for entertainment purposes. But I think that for entertainment only idiots, yeah, they should be forced to label their bullshit as for entertainment purposes only. They shouldn't be allowed to walk around saying this is a true story when it's not. It's obviously not. I didn't catch that. I don't know much about hallucinogens, Vanessa Thor. You can tell Emery is microdosing in half his presentations. Can you tell me how do you tell if somebody's microdosing? And for those that don't know, I'm aware at least that microdosing is taking a very small dose of a hallucinogenic drug. And I know a little bit about microdosing because of my connection to the computer industry, coders. Vanessa Thor, coders love microdosing. I know so many different coders that they will, especially when they're working on a difficult problem, they'll microdose all day and write code for 12 hours in a shot while they're microdosing. And apparently, many of them feel like that gives them an edge. Everybody in Silicon Valley is looking for any edge. And a lot of them have turned to microdosing as some competitive advantage that they think they have. They are legally culpable, definitely. Yeah, how can you tell? Professor Fez asked, could he have shell shock? I'm not aware if he was deployed in the military. I don't know if he saw combat, but that could certainly be a contributing factor to his problems. Paranormal Hajigi, who we recognize as an expert guest on all drugs. Paranormal Hajigi is our resident drug expert, especially cannabis expert. And he says that ain't microdoses of shrooms. He's on something else. Yeah. Brad Gray says, but that would make them high, Steve. Do you mean the coders that I know that use it? Yeah, I know other coders that smoke pot while they're writing code. I think that you can apply some merit to taking some form of drug to help with an artistic endeavor. I'll leave it at that. I don't condone or condemn anyone who chooses to use drugs in the pursuit of an artistic endeavor or in this, in the pursuit of an artistic endeavor. I know an incredible painter who would smoke so much pot while they were painting, and then they quit. One day they just quit, and I actually think that their artwork improved after they quit smoking pot and painting. But that's kind of a subjective thing. But I just noticed a marked difference in their painting after they stopped smoking pot. And there are other people who I know that are artists. In regard to cannabis, I know at least 2 songwriters that will smoke a lot of pot and drink a lot while they're writing. And then they both quit. I know more than a few musicians that smoke pot and drink while they're writing. But, these 2 people that I know quit, and then their songwriting went to shit when they try to write sober songs. Take from that what you will. That's just my personal opinion. I think that some people may need it to get into that creative state. Okay. Let's see if we have some other. They were both arrested for ketamine. Isn't ketamine like a horse tranquilizer? I think it is, right? Special K. It's a horse tranquilizer. I had a next door neighbor whose their son was on that, and he was fucked up. He used to get high, and they thought he was dead, in his room, because he was like unresponsive for long periods of time. But he was just all doped up on what is essentially a tranquilizer, I suppose. I don't know why anybody would want to do that to themselves, but okay. Sixth Design says, tried shrooms. They taste like shit, but didn't take enough of them to hallucinate. I've had a few shroom experiences, and I also have had a bunch of LSD experiences. I much prefer shrooms to I don't know. LSD to me seemed to be too crazy, too active, too crazy. It was like speeding and seeing shit at the same time. The shrooms was much. You're going to see some things, but it's a much calmer. At least in my experience, it was a much calmer sort of experience than LSD was. I'll probably never take any of that stuff ever again. Well, never say never. You know, I may, but I don't see that as being a possibility anytime in the near future. I did want to try salvia, uh, but I think that it's illegal in a lot of states now. Salvia, I hear that's a pretty interesting experience, and it's like you have the experience and then it's over, which is much preferred if you're, you can't, as a parent, you can't like drop acid and trip for 2 days straight, like when you were, a kid or, a young 20 something with no responsibilities. So I thought about doing salvia, but I haven't really pursued that. If that's the case, I'm creative every day. Brad Gray, you get by with a little help from your friend, MJ. Jonocide is here. Shout out to Jonocide. He says, I took shrooms one time and saw a gnome, but my roommate on shrooms 2 saw the same gnome. That's a little freaky. Maybe you guys opened the same portal to another dimension or something. You never know with this stuff. Try to LSD. Oh, yeah, it's vibrant. Its only limit is your imagination. Haven't done it in more than a decade, though. Yeah, my experience with hallucinogens was that I had one trip the first time, which was like an amazing, life-altering, I thought, experience. It was just amazing. And I had I guess somebody that you would call a good trip tour guide. And he had like black lights and he had music that was perfect for the situation. And he had us go out on his balcony when the sun was coming up later that night. And we got to, you're tripping balls and the sun's coming up over the city and all the colors and the orange and the red and the yellow and the waves of heat coming up as the sun came up. I will never forget that experience. But unfortunately, I think the term is chasing the dragon. Every other experience that I had was not that good. And I was always chasing the amazing original experience. And, I didn't do very much experimenting with that stuff. And I haven't for decades, but when playing improv music with friends, we like to smoke marijuana or sometimes do another drug. It's fun and we have the feeling that we were doing great, but the recordings are mostly terrible. Yeah, everything sounds great until you play it back, right? And then you go, shit, is that what we did? Dominic says, what I'd recommend for things like LSD, shrooms, etc., is to do them with a few people and people you know well, ideally in a cabin in the woods or something like that, as opposed to a nightclub. I happen to have a cabin in the woods, Dominic. I don't know that you know that, being new. I have a cabin in the mountains of Pennsylvania, the Pocono Mountains, that I built myself, and it's a great place to go and sort of unwind. Six Design, and he does graphics and he's an artist. He says most of the best stuff I feel has been done smoked out of my mind, Planet Lupa. Well, there you go. Professor Fez, you all need to go to confession after this talk. Yeah, only on my show could we talk about a Catholic saint for an hour of the show, and then the last half hour just talk about drugs. That is, listen, we go where the live chat takes us sometimes. Paranormal Hood, as soon as I'm fully healed, I'm going to do another DMT trip and shroom journeys. Can you do me a favor, Paranormal Jiggy? If once you do this, I want you to come on my show and describe the DMT trip, because that's something I've never done, and it's an interest of mine, especially because DMT is a naturally occurring compound in the body, and people think that DMT may have something to do with near-death experiences. I'm very interested in DMT trips. I've never talked to somebody. I've heard people describe their DMT experiences, but I've never been able to ask questions and things. So you got to come on and we'll call you a psychonaut. Is that what the term is, somebody who explores psychedelic drugs, psychonaut, I think, right? And you can come on and talk about that. We could definitely do a whole show on hallucinogens. Yes. Carol Utley says, I would love to try it on proper settings. I think the proper settings are very, very important. Are very, very important. You got to have the right setting. I had a bad LSD trip once, and that's probably the last one that I've ever had, and it was terrible. I wanted to go to the hospital. I thought I was dying, and like it was terrible, and I was having these emotional shock waves come over me, and I was like crying, and shit was crazy, and like yeah, and so I never did it again. Uh-oh. That's creepy. Paranormal Jiggy says, I've done DMT twice, and it was the closest thing to my experience when I died. Yeah, Paranormal Jiggy had a near-death experience, and you're saying that the DMT experience was the closest thing to that. That's scary. Vanessa Thor, where is everyone having all this access to shrooms and DMT? I'm surrounded by squares, I guess. Well, I was in the music business, so you could just ask around, and at every concert somebody had shrooms, somebody had LSD. They didn't have DMT back then when I was doing this kind of stuff. They had tabs of LSD, and they would come on this little sort of like quarter of a postage stamp size paper, and they'd be stamped with something weird, and some people would want certain ones of those stamps that would tell you what kind of trip you know, they'd have like a dragon stamp, some of them would have a smiley face stamp, and I don't know what the stamps meant, but I know that I had some friends that were like, let's go get some acid, and they're like, oh, this guy's only got the dragon tabs, I don't want that shit, I had a bad trip on that, I want the smiley face ones. I don't know what that meant, or you know, if it was different types, but yeah, they were all over. Shrooms, pot, really any drug that I wanted. Coke. I was never into any kind of hard drugs, though. Never did coke or heroin or any of that stuff. But the hallucinogens were everywhere, and pot was everywhere. Especially touring, you could basically tell the person that was running the show that you wanted pot when you got there. And he would just say, like, how much do you guys need or whatever? You'd go get us an ounce or half an ounce or whatever. Same thing with shrooms. If you wanted shrooms, you would tell them, and they would get them for you, and they'd be there when you went to the venue to do the show. A lot of places want to keep the musicians happy. Paranormal Jiggy says neither was scary at all. I mean scary in that it's like a near-death experience, because to me that's a little scary. But yeah, I am interested in DMT. Absolutely. William Pixley, I never knew this. Truly pure Coke is wicked amazing, but you just want more. Yeah, that's why I never did it, because I have an addictive personality, and if I like something, I go full tilt. When I like something, I go full tilt. So, and also when I was in the music business, I had several friends of mine that were on heroin that I knew that were fucking mess, and later several musician friends of mine that died from heroin. So heroin, especially, people offered that to me constantly. People offered that to me. And even like I'd meet a girl, I'd go back to her place and she'd be like, oh, I'm just going to get right. And I was young and naive. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to get right? And this girl starts pulling out this needle and this spoon and shit. And I was like, I got to go. I don't want to, I'm a little like, I don't like needles. And I sure as shit don't want to watch somebody boot up. So I got out of there. Six is design. I only smoke herbs and drink beer now. All those recreational drugs are something of the past, and I'm fine with it. Yeah, I hear you. That's kind of where I'm at. And I got a medical card. So it actually, because of the necropolis in my paralyzed eye, I qualify for a medical marijuana card. Yeah, friends. So I guess we're going to wrap things up here. Tomorrow we'll be doing another show either at 9 or 10 p.m. Well, probably 10 p.m. I'm going to the cabin tomorrow. So I will probably be doing the show from the cabin. Maybe we'll do another fireside chat. Got to check on some things there. And I never know like what time I can't leave until my wife's done work, and I don't know when she's done work. So yeah, maybe a late show tomorrow if I don't get there till late, and then it takes me a little bit of time to set everything up over there. So, but there should be a show tomorrow night. I think that that would be good. We are once again here tonight watering this garden, and surely this garden will grow. Oh, that's another thing. Let me take a moment to check. But I think we have reached a milestone for our new channel here. Yes, we did. So I'm happy to report and announce that we now have 501 subscribers. So we are halfway to monetization. Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. We're halfway there, YouTube algorithm. Praise the YouTube algorithm. Please help us get the remaining 499 subscribers so that we too can praise the cash. Every time a super chat donation comes in, praise the cash. We're halfway there. We're halfway there. I didn't think that this was going to take this long. That was an arrogant mistake on my part. I thought I'll start up this new channel. We'll get to the 1,000 subscribers in a few weeks, and we'll be good. We're a few months in, and we're only halfway there. It's a lot harder than I remember. It's a lot harder than I remembered to build a channel. I hadn't done it since, I don't know when I started my last channel, but probably 5 or 8 years, probably 8 years ago. It's not easy. But I'm thankful we're halfway there, and we're at about 15,000 views, which is good. We're just under, according to YouTube, but we have separate views on Twitch and on Facebook as well. So, friends, I want to thank you all for joining me tonight and sort of indulging me, because I know that this is not, Catholic mysteries and paranormal stuff is not a usual topic for our sort of community, but I think that these things are interesting and worthy of exploring for sure. So, friends, until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless you all.